If you're planning a trip to Singapore or have always been interested in visiting Singapore, then look no further because we are covering everything you need to know about travelling to this incredible city.
We'll be covering everything from entry requirements, where to stay, what to pack, how to get around, what to do, and of course safety. If you find any of the information in this video helpful, then we really would appreciate to like and subscribe so we can make more content like this.
Singapore is a sunny, tropical island in Southeast Asia and home to about 5 million people. Singapore is a multicultural city with amazing World Heritage sites, luxurious shopping malls, a world-class airport, and several great tourist destinations. It's no wonder why so many people want to visit this city every year.
How to get there?
You would want to book a flight to Changi Airport. Singapore Airlines is a national carrier, however Changi is a massive airport and services over 100 airlines, meaning it's very easy to get to Singapore from most of the world. It could even be just a stopover destination.
Changi Airport is full of attractions for passengers and as such has been voted world's best airport quite a few times. While you could spend a whole day in the airport, we do seriously recommend getting out into the city itself.
For booking flights, we usually first use Google Flights or Skyscanner to search all available flights across multiple airlines to find the best fares. We then will go directly to that airline and book through them. It's been our experience that booking directly through the airline, you get the best flexibility should you need to change your fare for any reason. It also gives you the opportunity to link your frequent flyer program for that airline or for your preferred partner airline to that flight as well. Visas. There are several countries that are eligible for an on-arrival visa with Singapore. However, you can also fill this out up to 3 days before online. We will drop the link down below in the description so that you can make sure you're on the legitimate Singapore visa website when you're doing that. If you are not from one of the eligible countries, then check with a local travel agent to find out what your entry requirements are to visit Singapore.
Travel insurance. Now, travel insurance isn't required when you're traveling into Singapore, but we highly recommend that you do so because you never know what's going to happen and it's always better to have it there as a just in case.
Currency. The currency used in Singapore is the Singapore dollar. Based on today's current exchange rates in September 2023, the current exchange rates, 1 Singapore dollar will buy you 1.14 Australian dollars, or 1 Singapore dollar will buy you 0.73 US dollars, or 1 Singapore dollar will buy you 0.79 euros. Usually we would recommend away from changing your currency at the airport as the currency exchange rates can be a little higher. However, our experience in Singapore from checking the rates at the airport and at various places around the city while we were travelling, we found there was very little to no difference in the rates. So if you're only changing a small amount, it probably doesn't matter too much. However, if you are changing a big amount of money, then you probably want to research what place has the best exchange rate for you.
We would recommend that you change a small amount of cash while in Singapore. Even though cash isn't required through a lot of places in Singapore, it is heavily relied on through the hawker centres and also some of the little markets out there.
Payment systems are quite advanced in Singapore and there are ATMs everywhere. You will commonly be using your credit cards, debit cards, or phone pay systems like Apple Pay or Google Pay, anywhere that has tap and pay available to pay for things.
Now, you don't need to worry about any scams or dodgy ATMs as everything is very secure and up to date.
When to visit Singapore? In terms of weather, Singapore sits near the equator, so it is a tropical country and it is hot and humid all year round. Its weather is categorised into a wet season and a dry season. The wet season is from September to February and the dry season, or not so wet season, is the rest of the year. As far as peak times, according to Google search, the busy times in Singapore is from November to January and during June and July. So if you want to visit when it's a little quieter or on the shoulder seasons, perhaps avoid those times of the year.
What to pack? It's always hot and humid, but it rains regularly and unexpectedly. So definitely bring a light rain jacket or poncho and maybe even an umbrella and definitely some good shoes.
I would definitely recommend packing clothes that are lightweight, breathable fabrics and that dry quickly. Because of the humidity, I would also recommend packing maybe a little bit more clothes than what you're used to packing. Pack your bathers if you want to go swimming at any of the beaches, swimming pools, or water theme parks. Besides that, just pack your usual hot weather clothing.
You will likely walk a lot in Singapore, so bring a good pair of walking shoes or comfortable sandals. When the sun is out, she definitely bites, so definitely bring some sunscreen, sunglasses, and definitely bring a hat. Don't be like me when I didn't bring a hat and I got sunburned. Definitely got sunburnt in Singapore, so definitely bring a hat. Maybe not this hat and you'll look like an absolute tourist, but yeah, definitely bring something.
If you're planning to hire a car, you'll need to bring your international driver's license. However, we don't recommend hiring a car in Singapore as the public transport is really easy to get around and parking is very expensive.
Tissues or wet wipes. You will need them while at hawker food centres, and we will explain why later on.
Medications. Bring any medications or prescription medications that you usually use with you to Singapore. Singapore has some quite strict rules around prescription medications, unlike some other Southeastern Asian countries. So you can't necessarily just walk up to a pharmacist and purchase what you need. So save yourself the doctor's trip by just bringing what you need with you from home. Make sure all of your prescriptions are in the original box or packaging that shows your name and prescription on there as well, in case they want to see that when you pass through immigration and customs. With prescription medication, it's worth giving it a quick Google before entering Singapore. Singapore has some high controls over certain prescription drugs, and it's worth making sure that the ones you are carrying are on the allowed list. If they are not, you may need to submit a pre-approval to carry those drugs into Singapore before you travel there. If you do forget to pack something, do not stress. The shopping in Singapore is fantastic and you will easily be able to find what you need. Just search for a shopping centre nearby to where you're staying.
Apps to download. To get around Singapore, we highly recommend downloading the app Grab, which works exactly the same as the Uber app in Australia and even the US and everything like that. So definitely download that one and make sure that you set it up before you get to Singapore, because the app requires you to use a phone number that you've got to authenticate the actual account itself. Now, Wi-Fi is readily available around Singapore. For those places that don't have Wi-Fi, we would highly recommend that you get an app called ByteSIM, which we used to get a digital eSIM to go onto our phones, so we had data access when there wasn't Wi-Fi available.
The other really good thing about having an eSIM for data on the go is that if you're traveling with more than one person, you don't all need to have it if you're going to be together at the same time. For example, Matt had the eSIM and he was able to hotspot my phone, which meant that we were able to share the cost of data across both of our devices. Now, this app we used for everything. Google Maps, and I'm sure most of you have heard of that one before. Definitely recommend pre-downloading your map for Singapore if you're worried about being outside of a data connection. That way you can access your maps even without internet service. But the maps in Singapore work really well. Most things are all available in English, and even the public transport was perfect with instructions right down to telling you what platform to go to catch the MRT.
Singapore offers a great range of accommodation, from luxury villas to budget-style hotels.
As for where to stay, we talked about this a lot and we don't really have a definitive answer, as this depends so much on your travel style and what kind of things you want to see and do while you're in Singapore. However, my suggestion would be, if you don't like to walk around too much or spend too much time catching transport, have a look at where most of the activities you want to do are on Google Maps and then find accommodation that is close by to them. Otherwise, if you were staying anywhere near an MRT stop or a bus stop, you can very easily get around to get to all of the places you want to. However, if you're up for a luxury stay and would like to stay in like a resort villa or a really luxurious hotel room, you are spoiled for choice in Singapore. You can take the luxury to the next level over there. It is like insane and beautiful at the same time. If you stay around the Marina Bay Sands or Bayfront area, you'll be close to Gardens by the Bay, obviously Marina Bay Sands as well, Merlion Park, and then you've also got the Fullerton Hotel and Raffles Hotel there as well, which are hotels in themselves, but they're also buildings that are really good to just go and check out as well. Otherwise, if you're planning a lot of activities over at Sentosa Island, like some of the theme parks, you can actually get really good accommodation over there as well. So it's just about deciding what you want to do and where you would like to be. If you're looking to stay in an area that's a little bit more affordable, definitely we would recommend around Chinatown. That's still very close to the city and also very easy for MRTs and public transport as well. The other area too, and please excuse my pronunciation if you are Singapore and watching this because I'm not sure how to say it properly, but around the Bugis Beach area. I'm just going to drop the name down here just in case I've said that wrong. But that area is also a really great area in itself, and you can easily get on the MRT or buses from there to make it into the city, and the accommodation is just a little bit more affordable as it's a bit further back from the city. Another area that we recommend is around the Fort Canning area as well. We stayed there on our last trip to Singapore in 2017. Also super easy to get around from that area, and there's quite a bit to do around there in itself. With this particular trip, we actually booked quite last minute and we were on a tighter budget than usual. So we found accommodation in an area called Geelong. We didn't actually Google the area at all whatsoever. The only thing we did was put it into Google Maps just to see its proximity to the city and what kind of bus routes or MRT routes we would be taking to get around. Upon arriving in the area, we actually found out that the area is known as the red light district of Singapore. So take that as you will. We had a great time staying in this area because it is a nightlife area. Everything is open really late. We were able to get lots of really great food at all times of the day or night. And there's a lot of really authentic local restaurants around there, really affordable eats as well. And we felt just as safe there as anywhere else in the city. So definitely would still recommend staying in this area if that doesn't bother you, as it's very affordable and it was so easy to get around from there too. While staying in that area, it was also our experience that a lot of the locals were really friendly and interested in chatting to us as well. We kind of got the impression that a lot less tourists stay in this area. So it was a really good way for us to kind of like learn a bit more about the Singaporean culture while we were there, try some more authentic foods, and we got so much really great tips and advice just from chatting to local people in the area too.
Transportation. For a really convenient way of getting around Singapore, there are a multitude of taxi services, from normal taxis to limousine taxis, or even like what we talked about before, using the Grab app to get around as well. For a really budget-friendly way of getting around Singapore, highly recommend using the MRT system and the bus routes.
The buses and the MRT in Singapore are super budget friendly and really easy to ride. You can tap on and tap off with your own Visa or MasterCard and it will calculate the fare for you, or you can pre-purchase a ticket or a transport card over there that you can reload and use multiple times. The services are really clean, super efficient, always on time was our experience, like really on time.
Yeah.
And if you're using the MRT, the other advantage is that you can cut through the traffic as well, as it's all underground. Budget. Now, we've had a lot of people say to us, isn't Singapore really expensive? I find budget, it's a really hard one and it's so subjective to each person and how you like to travel. That you can do luxury travel, comfortable travel, budget travel. It really depends, and it depends on what you want to do when you get there. So we talked about this and actually agreed against giving any kind of budget guide for your trip to Singapore because it can really vary so much. In saying that, we found for us, coming from Perth in Western Australia, that a lot of things that we paid for in Singapore are quite similar in price to what we would expect to pay at home, and we feel that the living expenses are a little bit similar in that way. In saying that, some things that were notable, in general, we paid less for food and transport in Singapore than what we actually would in Perth, Western Australia. However, things like alcohol were a lot more in Singapore, and then it depends as well what activities you want to do, as if you're going to go to a lot of activities and theme parks, your budget can really ramp up from that side of things.
Now, Singapore has some really luxurious shopping. So if you've got a bottomless credit card, definitely you'll be able to spend a lot of money there. Or if you're like us, you can definitely do some pretty good window shopping.
However, for a ballpark figure on budget, if you watched our vlogs in Singapore, you would have seen that we did a very big range of different activities while we were there. We did a lot of free activities and we also paid for tickets for a lot of activities, ate a broad range of food, had a few drinks while we were there and did all sorts of different things. Our budget, not including accommodation and flights, ended up coming in at 170 Australian dollars per day for both of us when we averaged out our trip. Depending what you want to do, you could definitely, like if you want to do luxury and take it to the high end, you could take that like so many places because there is so much to do. But I definitely think if you wanted to budget down a little bit more from that, you absolutely could.
Oh, yeah.
There was many times when we got Grabs or taxis just because it was easier or it was late and we'd already walked so much during the day. But you could definitely get around more with the public transport and cut it down that way. Also, there was a few attractions that we went to as well, and we did a lot in a short period of time. So you could cut back on a few of those, or if you're staying in Singapore for a longer amount of time, that budget per day would drop as well because you wouldn't be fitting so many activities into that short period of time. Traffic and congestion. This part surprised us so much. When you have a look at Singapore on a map and see how small it is compared to a lot of other countries, and then realize that there's over 5 million people in Singapore and a lot of tourists every day, we were so surprised that we felt like we were never stuck in traffic. Like The city the roads seemed to just move really well, and even walking around the city, we never felt like we were in amongst a big crowd of people. I think the only time it was really crowded was seeing the light show at Gardens by the Bay in the evening, because a lot of people do go there to see that. But beyond that, the city seemed very well organised and just seemed to move efficiently.
Languages. Singapore is a very multicultural country, so there is multiple languages that are spoken. The main languages that are spoken are English, Malay, Tamil, and Singaporean Mandarin.
Although many languages are spoken in Singapore, being an English speaker, we didn't encounter any trouble with this. We found everyone spoke English very well and didn't actually encounter anyone at all that didn't speak English. Most signage was available in English, or it would have an English variation underneath of it as well.
What to eat? There is really good food to try all over Singapore, and it's a great place to try food from all over the world. Some things worth a mention are coffee. Now, I drink a lot of coffee when I'm at home, and what I've found is that the coffee in Singapore is definitely a lot sweeter than it is over in Australia at least. Now, we definitely notice that Singapore's coffee is a lot sweeter, but if you're not up for a sweet coffee, then there are Starbucks and everything like that around, so you can definitely get a strong coffee if you need to, but definitely recommend trying a Singaporean coffee. It's definitely worth a try at least.
Something to look out for, and this is not Singapore exclusive, but we've found this through a lot of Asia, is the fruit called durian. You'll probably smell it before you see it most of the time. This is something that people seem to have a love-hate relationship with, and we've never tried it on any of our past trips to Asia. But this time, a few locals just really said to us, you have to try it, at least make your own mind up of it. It's like a large kind of round spiky fruit that you'll probably see it at a lot of little markets and places like that. It's commonly not allowed into hotel rooms or on the MRTs or buses or places like that. They'll have signs up saying no durian, or a picture of a durian with like a cross over it because of the smell. They don't want to smell their places out. So we definitely didn't want to take a whole one of these back to our place to try it. So we tried really hard to find somewhere that had it maybe already sliced up or cut up so we could just try it a little bit. But we did unfortunately fail at finding that this trip. So we came across a place that had durian flavoured ice cream and thought we'd give it a go, and I'm sorry to say, and I'm sorry if we offend anyone, but it was a hard no and a hard pass from both of us.
Yeah, definitely no.
But if you're travelling, like, maybe try it yourself to make your own mind up of it. I think for me it was the smell that did it for me more than the flavour, but the flavour was just strange as well, very different to our palate of food.
Yeah, it's a little different on our palate. Water and ice. Drinking from the tap in Singapore is completely safe, so you really don't have to worry about that. Definitely not in this country.
Alcohol is readily available in Singapore, and you can purchase beers and wines and things like that at most convenience stores. Bear in mind, there is a higher tax on alcohol in Singapore, so the cost may be a bit higher than what you're used to. For us as Australians, we already pay quite a bit for our alcohol, and it was substantially more in Singapore, so just be aware of that. Also, there is a few rules in certain areas about what time of the night bars can serve alcohol to as well. So if you do like to drink, maybe pick some up at the duty free and have it in your room.
Now, if you're at the hawkers centres and you're looking around and you're seeing tissues just on all the tables and you go, what is that? What they are is actually how you reserve tables. So if you've got a packet of tissues, you put that onto the actual table itself, and that shows that you have reserved that. So it's a little bit of a customary thing to do, that have a pack of tissues with you, put it down, and then everyone knows that that is your table and they will not take it.
Also, on that note, while you're at hawker centres and food centres in general, you will find that a lot of these places have some of the tastiest meals you will try in Singapore. However, they are no-thrill centres. So some of the best places, they are sometimes outdoor with just a roof over them. You'll usually not have any air conditioning, just fans and things like that. One of the other no-thrills is that usually the food is served on plastic plates with plastic cutlery, and they don't provide napkins and tissues. This is one of the ways that they keep the cost down for the consumer when purchasing your meal. So you do need to actually take your own tissues or wet wipes for that reason. But as Matt was saying, we were informed really early on by the locals that that's how they also reserve their table. One of the national dishes in Singapore is the chicken rice. We tried this a few times. Our favourite, I think, would have to be at Tin Tin Chicken Rice in the Maxwell Food Centre. We were recommended this by so many people, and it was delicious, and it was super soft, tasty, really affordable, all of the above. So definitely recommend trying that. The chicken rice comes with like a broth flavoured rice, and the chicken is usually, I think it was steamed or...
Yeah, I think it was steamed or boiled.
Steamed or boiled, yeah. And then there's a sauce that they put over it. Really tasty. Like, you have to try it. If you're going to Singapore, you have to try it. One of the other dishes that I think is important to try when you are in Singapore is the Singapore chili crab. We tried this on our first trip to Singapore, so we didn't have it again this trip because we wanted to try other things. It's absolutely delicious. Just be aware, it is a meal that makes you work for it. You will probably spend longer trying to like crack like the crab shell open than you will eating it. And I think as well, sometimes you get in there and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of meat left, but I think it actually sort of like dissolves out into all of the sauce that comes with the dish, and it is so tasty. But just be aware, it is not something you're gonna go grab and quickly eat. Like, get it when you have time to sit for a little while and enjoy it, because you will need to sit for a little while and work your way through this dish. In a lot of the Hawkers food centres as well, what we love about them is that they have a really good variety of different food in the one building. So if you're with a group, it's a really good way that everyone can kind of just get something that they're happy with. Or if you want to try food from like all different kinds of food or food from different region, it's a really good way to experience that too. What we found our experience was with the food centres is when it comes to purchasing drinks as well, is that all the individual food stores don't actually sell drinks. Usually there'll be one or two vendors in each food centre that does all the drinks in one place, so you can go there and purchase your drink and then go and pick up your food.
Electrical. Now, Singapore, with its British influence, has adopted the UK style power plug. So if you don't have that power plug, then definitely try and find a converter for that one. So going from your own power to the UK style one. And the voltage is from 220 to 240 volts. So if you're from an area like the US, then you will need a voltage converter for that one as well, because that voltage is a lot higher than that one.
With running the power at a 220 to 240 volts rate, coming from Australia, all of our appliances are automatically compatible with that. And if you're coming from Europe as well, that's also probably the case. However, you do need to be careful with this depending where you're coming from. So specifically for people in America and some other countries that run on 110 volt power, things like phone chargers and stuff like that likely already have dual voltage and will work anyways. But what you need to be especially careful of is things like hair dryers, hair straighteners, hair curlers, because if they are not dual voltage and you plug them into the higher power of the 220 to 240 volts, you will actually break your device, like quite possibly blow it up. I have seen that when I've traveled, and I've seen people come from other countries into different areas that I've been staying in, plug their hair straightener or the hair dryer in, and it goes boom. Like, it doesn't blow up, but it'll smoke out or short or something. You will not be able to use it again. So just be prepared for that. Safety. So safety is not really a concern in Singapore. We both felt super safe everywhere that we went. Crime in Singapore is really low, and they also have a very low tolerance for all kinds of crimes in Singapore. So usually people don't want to commit them because the punishments do fit the crime. However, in saying that, always practice self-awareness and vigilance no matter where you are. It's your own responsibility to look after your safety at the end of the day. And it just pays to always be aware of where you are, especially maybe if you are traveling on your own. But Singapore is a super safe place to visit, and if you are a solo traveler, would highly recommend visiting Singapore. A couple of things to look out for, and they're not necessarily safety as such, but while we're talking about it, a couple little of encounters. There is a little bit of touting in Singapore. You won't experience a lot of it, but we found most of it happened sort of around like Little India or Chinatown. Sometimes people trying to get you into their markets or into their food stores, but you can quite easily just say no to them, no thank you, and keep on walking. One thing we did encounter, and I think this is something I'd normally be very aware of or watch out for, and I think maybe we just sort of got a little bit wrapped up in feeling so safe in Singapore we overlooked it. But I had this guy walk up to me while we were walking the streets of Little India at night, and he started trying to put something on my wrist. And usually, like, I've traveled to Europe and all kinds of places, and I know very well, like, do not let anyone touch you, do not let anyone pass something to you, because the moment you take it, you have to pay for that item. I just didn't expect this in Singapore, and to add to that, we were standing like near a temple at the time, and the guy was dressed as a monk. He started putting like a little bracelet thing on my wrist and telling me I was lucky, and I think I was just a bit sort of wrapped up in that safety feeling of Singapore, and also I thought he was actually a monk, and I was trying to be polite. I didn't want to be rude or disrespectful. Matt, however, very quickly realised what was going on. He started passing it to me, and then I just said, "Does this cost money?" And he was like, yeah, and he's putting it on my wrist and telling me it's lucky, and Matt just very quickly kind of intervened and took my wrist away and was like, no, she doesn't want it, and we kept walking. And then I very quickly realised he wasn't actually a monk. He was just someone dressed as a monk trying to get tourists like us to buy these bracelets. I don't even know how much they were. We didn't hang around long enough to find out, but be aware of that and look out for it. Another time a similar sort of thing happens is in some of the food centres, and we noticed it happened more in some than others, is that how we were saying about the napkins and the wet wipes, you do need to have your own, and it is very convenient when these people are there and you don't have them. However, there's people that walk around with little like trolley carts selling packets of tissues and napkins, and they're very pushy. Like, we had our own tissues and napkins and we would just say no thank you, and they'd keep trying to put them on your table, and because they're on your table they wanted you to pay for it. So don't feel like you have to. Don't think that they're free and say thank you very much, because you'll end up in an embarrassing situation where you do have to pay for them. But we just found they could be a little bit pushy in some of those. One area we found for that was actually the Newton Food Centre, and I think that one's become a little bit more touristy, particularly because that food centre appeared in the movie Crazy Rich Asians. We found there was a bit more touting that happened at that food centre, and a lot more people being approached, like trying to, get people to come in and try that particular food or to buy the napkins and things like that. So just be aware that it does happen. And in general, we found it was quite safe in Singapore and things were really easy, really cruisy. There was one area in particular, we did buy like a riverboat cruise thing for the day, and it was a cash sale. When I say cash sale, like we paid for the tickets there. It wasn't a pre-purchase online, but we did pay with card. And the sign was very clearly advertising the prices, and it was just the two of us, and we had no crowd around us. There was no one else queuing up at the time, so I don't think there was any way the guy could have misunderstood how many people were in our group. I very clearly said for two of us. There was only two of us there. There was no other groups behind us. And then the guy was like, yep, no problem, passed us 2 tickets, but put the amount into the FPOS, and the amount he put into the FPOS was actually for 3 people. And I called him out on it politely, and I just said, sorry, like, is there a reason the price is this much? I thought maybe it's more on that day or something like that. I just wanted to know. So when I asked him about it, he was like, yeah, that's the price. And I was like, no, like, I was like, the sign here says it's this price per person, there's 2 of us. And he was like, oh, I thought there was 3 of you. And I just let it go. Like, it's not worth arguing about these things. And it was just it felt a bit disingenuous, because he'd already given us 2 tickets and then was trying to charge us for 3 and telling us that he thought that there was 3 of us, but had only given us 2 tickets. So it just felt a bit disingenuous. It's the only place that it happened to us. Just be a bit mindful of it. Some people might be a little bit unsuspecting, or if you're not used to converting currency or working with your money in different dollars, it's very easy to get confused with these things. So just be aware of it. But most of the time we felt really safe and it was really easy. So yeah. Another little thing we noticed as well, and this isn't really a Singapore thing in general, but just anywhere that you travel, buying attraction tickets through third-party providers. There's a lot of third-party providers on the internet, and a lot of them get endorsed by travel vloggers as well, like ourselves, and all sorts of people that are recommending that you use them. Our experience, unfortunately, with one of them wasn't a great one. We bought some tickets for an attraction, and then when we got to the attraction, we couldn't use the tickets. No one was accepting them. It put quite a bit of a dampener on our day. It was the day that we went to Sentosa, so you can look back on that vlog if you want to see a little bit more about what we got up to. But it turned out in the end, after a few hours of chasing it around, the tickets we purchased actually were legit. Just no one was recognising them, so we got sent around. We spent about 3 hours being sent from one ticketing office to another ticketing office, up a cable car, back down a cable car, up a train, down another train, trying to just get our tickets scanned so that we could get in and get all the things that we had paid for. It all worked out in the end, but just be aware of it. If you are booking tickets through a third party, just double check like what the terms and conditions are, and that sort of thing. Or maybe just call ahead to the attraction place itself if you don't want to purchase their tickets, and just check if they are aware of these tickets and make sure that it is all legit, or ask the people at your hotels as well.
Casinos. Now, for local residents, there is normally a fee to get into these places, but for tourists like ourselves, you can actually go into them for free. You just need your passport and your arrival card, which is normally in your emails right after you've cleared customs.
Where to go in Singapore? Now, there is so many places to go, we wouldn't be able to tell you all of them, so definitely do give that a little bit of a Google yourself and find things that are of interest to you. Some of the highlights we went to that are also some of the popular sort of places to go and see and do are Marina Bay Sands. So we visited that area, walked all through the shops around there, went to the foyer of the hotel just to have a little nosy. We did purchase tickets to the Sky Deck observation up there, so you can purchase a ticket and you get access to the lift to go up to the top level. The views from up there were amazing, so it's definitely worth checking out if you're into that kind of thing. There's a small snack bar once you get up there, so you can buy a small selection of drinks and like snack foods like popcorn and things like that. Once we got up there though, we did realise there is actually a rooftop bar up on that level that is public access. You don't need to be a hotel guest for. You can't access that area with your Sky Deck ticket though, so if you do want to go to the bar, make a separate booking for that. And once we realised that, I sort of think my hack personally, if we were to go back or we were to tell someone about it, I would actually just look up the bar. I think for what we paid for our entry tickets, for not much more, we could have just made a booking at the bar and sat there and had like a cocktail or two and some tapas or something like that and still enjoyed the view and maybe just got a little bit better value for our money, so have a look at that. Gardens by the Bay, that's definitely a big one. Everyone we talk to about going to Singapore, everyone's like, go to Gardens by the Bay, or have you been to Gardens by the Bay? Gardens by the Bay is beautiful. If you want to see more about it, go check out our vlog on Gardens by the Bay. You'll find that in the description down below. There's a mixture of paid and free activities to do at Gardens by the Bay. So if you are on more of a budget, you can definitely go there and participate in the free activities. The light show on the Super Tree Grove at night is actually a free activity. I think you just pay if you want to go up to the top of those or inside the domes or participate in any of the other attractions that are on at the time. Another area that's a heavy hitter in the way of attractions is Sentosa Island. Now, we visited Sentosa last time we came to Singapore in 2017, and we visited again now, and our experience both times was completely different based on us choosing different things to do. So in 2017, we visited Universal Studios. So we had tickets to go to Universal Studios and we basically went straight there, visited Resorts World around Universal Studios, and then we left and went back to the city. So our time that day was fantastic. We were around like lots of cool things to see and do and just having fun that you do when you go to theme parks. This time we decided to go and actually not purchase any like attraction or theme park tickets and just go to Sentosa itself and have a look around. It's really fun. You can get the cable car over there. We went to Mount Faber Lookout and caught the cable car from there, so you get a really nice view of Sentosa and also of the city as well on the way over there, and that's all beautiful. My honest opinion once you get there though is that it is very geared towards tourists, so just be aware of that. If you're not going there with a specific attraction in mind, a lot of the things to do once you do get there are paid attractions, so you're kind of just sort of mindlessly walking around and riding the cable cars back and forward. It is geared very much towards children, and I think if you're a family traveling with kids, you'd have a totally different experience. However, we nearly left Sentosa in the early afternoon, and then we just got lucky. We were talking to a guy that worked there and we're having a good chat, and he started telling us some stuff, and we ended up getting back on one of the little monorails, taking it to the other side of the island, riding a bus and then walking a little bit. And we went to this little area and it's known as the southernmost point of continental Asia. Now, he was telling us about it and I said to him, I did not see this in any of our research or any of our Googling, and his response to that was, no one ever does. And that was absolutely worth checking out. We got there sort of in time for sunset, which was beautiful. And there's a little sign, you walk over a swing bridge and then there's a little sign that says, welcome to the most southern point of continental Asia. And then there's like a little lookout that you can climb up to and get a really nice view of the sunset. There was also just a really nice chill vibe out there, beautiful beaches for swimming in. I wish we'd taken our swimsuits, but we hadn't. So I think depending on what your expectations are of Sentosa, you can go there and have a really good day. Just make sure you have the right expectations for what you're going to see, or just look up the activities you want to do before you go and make sure that you're going to the right areas, as it is actually a really big area.
Now, apart from all of that, we actually really just enjoyed walking around Singapore because there's just that much to do, and no matter what, you will just find something. You just keep walking, you will find something to do. Even if you love architecture like us, The buildings around there, awesome to look at. Or if you're into food, there is just a multitude of options. You can just walk a couple hundred meters and you will just find something to do.
All right, I think that pretty much sums up everything we had to tell you guys about Singapore. We absolutely loved it over there, and we will definitely be back. Like we can't wait to go back. We have such a great time every time we go there. Whether you're going for a full holiday or just a short stopover, definitely go and check out as much as you can. You'll have an absolutely great time. If you have any questions that we haven't answered, definitely ask them in the comments and we will try to get back to you. If you are from Singapore and you have answers to any of the questions that we don't quite know the answer to, do feel free to jump on and let anyone know, or if there's information that you think we've missed in our vlog that people would like to know, do feel free to put it down in the comments below.
If you like this video, then definitely like, and if you want to see more, definitely subscribe.
But for now, we're going to enjoy our time home with our cats, and we will see you from our next destination.